Athena, also spelled Athena, in Greek religion, was the protector of the city, goddess of war, crafts, and practical reason, identified by the Romans as Minerva. She is essentially urban and civilized, the opposite in many ways of Artemis, the goddess of the outdoors. Athena was probably a pre-Greek goddess and was later taken over by the Greeks. However, the Greek economy, unlike that of the Minoans, was largely military-based, so Athena, while retaining her ancient domestic duties, became the goddess of war. Painting. Paint. She was the daughter of Zeus, born without a mother, so when she became an adult she emerged from his forehead. There is another story where Zeus swallowed Metis, the goddess of consultation, while she was pregnant with Athena so that Athena could finally escape Zeus. As the beloved child of Zeus, she possesses immense power. Athena's association with the acropolises of various Greek cities probably originated from the location of the king's palaces. She is said to have no wife or children. She may not have been initially described as a virgin, but virginity was attributed to her early on and underlies the interpretation of her epithets Pallas and Parthenos. As the goddess of war, Athena could not be dominated by other goddesses such as Aphrodite, and as the goddess of the palace, she could not be violated. In Homer's Iliad, Athena, as the goddess of war, inspires and fights alongside Greek heroes. Its aid is synonymous with military power. Also in the Iliad, Zeus, the chief god, specifically assigned the field of war to Ares, the god of war, and Athena. Athena's moral and military superiority over Ares partly stems from the fact that she represents the intellectual and civilized aspect of war as well as the virtues of justice and skill, while Ares represents only bloodlust. His superiority came partly from the greater variety and importance of his functions as well as from the patriotism of Homer's predecessors, Ares being of foreign origin. In the Iliad, Athena is the divine form of heroic and martial ideals. She embodies excellence in close combat, victory, and glory. The qualities that lead to victory are found on the aegis, or breastplate, that Athena wore in battle. Fear, conflict, defense, and aggression. Athena appears in Homer's Odyssey as the patroness of Odysseus, and myths from later sources also describe her as the assistant of Perseus and Heracles, Hercules. As protector of the welfare of kings, Athena became the goddess of good advice, wise restraint, and practical insight as well as war. During the post-Mycenaean period, the city, especially its citadel, replaced the palace as the domain of Athena. She is revered by many, but in modern times she is primarily associated with Athens, where she gave her name. Her appearance as the city goddess, Athena Polias, Athena, guardian of the city, accompanied the ancient city-state's transition from monarchy to democracy. It is associated with birds, especially the owl, which has become as famous a symbol of the city as the snake. His birth and his struggle with Poseidon, god of the sea, for domination of the city, were represented on the pediments of the Parthenon, and the great festival of Panathenaea, in July, celebrated his birthday. She was also worshipped in many other cities, especially Sparta. Athena became the goddess of crafts and peacetime professional activity in general. She is especially known as the patroness of spinning and weaving. That she eventually became an allegorical symbol personifying wisdom and reason was a natural evolution of the patronage of her skills. Athena is often depicted wearing armor, a helmet, and carrying a shield and spear. Two Athenians, the sculptor Phidias and the playwright Aeschylus, made a significant contribution to the popularization of Athenian icon culture. She inspired three of Phidias's sculptural masterpieces, including the colossal Chryselephantine, gold and ivory, statue of Athena Parthenos that once stood in the Parthenon, and in Aeschylus's dramatic tragedy Eumenides, she established the Areopagus, the noble council of Athens, and, by breaking the deadlock of the judges in favor of the accused Orestes, she created a precedent. Rule under which a tie vote means acquittal. Athena is the goddess of wisdom, war, and crafts. She was the most beloved of all Zeus's children. For she was considered the wisest and bravest of Mount Olympus. One day, while consulting with the oracle, the almighty Zeus received an amazing prophecy. Prophecy reveals that if Metis, the goddess of wisdom, gives birth to a son, he would be strong enough to overthrow his father and deplete his throne, tormented by the possibility of losing his dominion over gods and men. Zeus devised a plan to prevent the prophecy from coming true using ingenuity and cunning. The father of the gods invited Metis to a banquet in his palace during the celebration of the Great One. Zeus challenges his lover to a game of transformation, in which both must change their appearance to impress the other. The goddess couldn't resist the temptation to show off her huge body. Domination accepted the challenge, as one of his powerful gifts was the ability to shape-shift, so after many transformations, the king of Olympus asked the goddess to adopt him. In the form of a drop of water, Zeus said mockingly to his lover that he would never succeed, but that he would only show the cunning and ambition of the god. Her power led Metis into an evil trap, and it was there, when she became a mere drop of water, that Zeus saw an opportunity and gave it to her in one fell swoop. Therefore, the ruler of Olympus believed that he had broken the prophecy and would never lose his hard-working throne, like his ancestors. Over time, the god began to feel unbearable pain in his head. Each day the pain became more intense, until he was almost unbearable, on the brink of despair, overwhelmed by suffering. Non-stop. Zeus decided to end his illness, so he called on Hephaestus, the god of fire and forge, to ease his delirium. "You must free me from this torment, open my head, and find the cause of my suffering," said Zeus with a pitiful cry. The god, although worried about the consequences of his request, still obeyed his father, and with a precise slash of the axe that opened Zeus' head, suddenly a figure emerged from the skull of the supreme god. The entire atmosphere was filled with divine light. When an unknown being emerged from the king's body, little by little he entered through the hole in his head, who would be his father, a being with shining armor and a powerful shield. A majestic and powerful warrior, standing before the astonished council of gods, who watched the event with horror. The young goddess, fully grown and fully armed, was Athena, her daughter of Zeus and Metis, because when Zeus ate his lover, she was already pregnant. So quickly that the king of Olympus revived his mighty daughter. Even Zeus, although painful at first, could not help but feel proud of everything at the splendor of his daughter. Was born from his head. Zeus said in a deep and strong voice, "My daughter, welcome to Olympus. You are the goddess of wisdom, strategy, and war, and you reign with me on this sacred mountain." Over time, the young warrior became the beloved daughter of Zeus, because she showed her great wisdom, cunning, and strength. It surpasses all other gods. The young goddess knew that her father would support her in all her journeys and decisions, so she asked him to respect her and grant her eternal purity. Her father was proud of his daughter's decision. "I am happy," It was like she was accepting everything and giving it to him. His wish. Athena formed a special friendship with a young warrior named Pallas. Paul is the daughter of the sea god Triton, and she has extraordinary martial arts skills, earning her the respect and admiration of the goddess. Over the years, the young friends had many adventures together, learned the art of strategy, and one day fought together as the sun scorched the sky and ocean waves crashed against the cliffs. Athena and Pallas decide to play a friendly match to test each other's superior skills. Two warriors, armor and spears at the ready, stood in a clearing surrounded by trees and rocks. The two began to fight, and in movements as quick and precise as a synchronized dance, the goddess's spear collided with the Pallas's sword, sparking as they deftly clashed. As Pallas raised his sword to block the blow, gods and mortals watching from afar marveled at the skill of the two warriors. Blinded by the sunlight, the god could not control the spear's power. Her gun slipped from Pallas' hand and hit her square in the chest. The Pallas screamed and Athena dropped her spear and lunged towards her wounded friend. "Sorry, I didn't mean it that way." Mr. Pallas reached out to touch his friend's face, trying to catch his breath. "Don't blame yourself, it was just an accident," she whispered before taking her last breath. Her pain and guilt plunged the goddess into despair. The goddess raised her voice to heaven and vowed to remember her deceased friend. From that day on, the goddess named the Pallas Athena, in memory of the brave warrior who was her friend and companion. "I swear that I will bear your name as a Pallas and that your memory will live on in me forever," and her sacred I promised with tears rolling down my face. And the goddess became a Pallas. Athena, a wise and protective warrior goddess, always carries with her the memory of the friendship and love that she shared with her deceased companions, and over time she became a great woman. She is amazing. Full of cunning and great abilities, proving to completely master all the arts of gods and mortals. In a small village, there lived a beautiful young woman named Arachne. She was known throughout the region for her great skill in the art of weaving. Her tapestries were so beautiful and detailed that many claimed that the goddess Athena herself had instructed her, but the young woman, instead of being honored by such praise, took pride and belittled the gods, declaring that her talent surpassed that of any god, even the goddess of wisdom. Her foul words reached the ears of Athena, who, enraged by the girl's arrogance, decided to teach her a lesson. The goddess of war could not bear that immortal had defied the gods in that way, since no one in the world could be superior to the divinities. So full of anger, she took the form of an old woman and descended to the village where Ayak lived. In the workshop of the young weaver, the disguised goddess began to converse with her very delicately, and giving her advice. She addressed her. "They say that your weavings are the most beautiful in all of Greece," said the old woman, with a gentle smile. "But remember, humility is a virtue that even the most talented must cultivate." The woman laughed scornfully and replied, "My skill is undeniable. If Athena wants to challenge me, I won't hesitate to beat her in a weaving competition, because she has proven that she is much better." Athena could no longer stand Arachne's boasts, and she cried out her true identity to the mortals, who immediately accepted her challenge. The goddess and the young weaver began weaving a tapestry. Each tapestry is more impressive than the last, with the last tapestry representing the goddess of wisdom, showing the gods and all their splendor, and demonstrating the majesty of a work of art worthy of display on Olympus itself. Meanwhile, the girl worked on tapestries depicting divine scenes, her weaknesses, and mistakes, and fatal insults to her life and actions. When both tapestries were completed, God examined them. Looking at Arachne's work, I couldn't help but admire the skills of these young people. However, Weaver felt angry at the goddess. When he saw how mortals used his talents to humiliate him. The immortals cannot praise her weaving skills. Athena thought about her own punishment. I have proven that I am even better than you, the mortals said proudly, unaware of the danger. The goddess of wisdom, who was lurking inside, could not control her anger and raised her hand, turning Arachne into a small spider with her great power. The young weaver will be sentenced to weaving thread forever. He reminded her of the importance of humility and respect for her god as her little girl transitioned into her new form. The goddess of wisdom said to her, "May your destiny be an example to all who dare to rebel against the gods and despise their gifts. Humility is a virtue that should not be ignored." Even in the era when talent was at its richest, it later aroused the interest of the gods in a prosperous city that still had no name. Athena, the goddess of wisdom and strategy, and Poseidon, the lord of the sea and earthquakes, both aspired to become patron saints of auspicious events. Thus, Metropolis, after a long dispute between the two gods, with the consent of Zeus, both compete for the favor of the people, offering gifts symbolizing their intentions and the power of the gods. Agreed. Athena and Poseidon accepted the agreement proposed by Zeus and decided that day to decide who should become the eternal guardian of the city. There they met on a hill overlooking the city. Their majestic appearance, blocking the sun, attracted the attention of the crowds gathered to witness this monumental event, which Pierre and all the people of today have been waiting for the goddess of knowledge. And be resourceful and offer gifts that will bring prosperity and peace to your community, Athena cries the helmet. The goddess, with her bright eyes and full of wisdom, pulled up the olive tree from the earth with the gentle movements of her hands. Its silver leaves and branches shone in the sun. This tree, swaying in the wind, symbolizes the wisdom and peace that Athena promised to bring to the city, and its rich fruits would ensure the prosperity of its inhabitants. Poseidon with a powerful trident. Then, smiling proudly, he stepped forward, raised his mighty trident, and thrust it diagonally into the ground with great force, which even made the earth tremble, and immediately a fountain of water gush forth. Poseidon's promise was clear wealth and protection, thanks to the dominion over the waters and seas, and he told them that the fountain would be eternal. The citizens were amazed, and grateful began to deliberate among themselves. Before making a decision, all the grateful citizens went to the gifts of the gods, but as soon as they drank from Poseidon's fountain they realized that the water was salty, so the gift was practically useless. After a prolonged debate, the leader of the community stepped forward, and in a loud voice told all the people that, one by one, they should give a vote to the gods, to find out who would be the winner. Thus, after several hours, the verdict was finally known: "We thank you for your generous offerings, but we have decided to accept the gift of Athena. The people have voted for the goddess to be our patroness and protector." The olive tree, a symbol of wisdom, peace, and prosperity, is what we wish for our city. The goddess smiled, grateful for the wise choice of the citizens. Meanwhile, Poseidon was furious at having been rejected. Disappeared in a column of sea foam, leaving behind him the salt water fountain as a reminder of his anger. He vowed never to forget the great humiliation because of the goddess, so he promised to take revenge on her when he had the slightest opportunity. From that day on, the city adopted the name Athens, in honor of its divine protector, and the olive tree became a sacred and revered symbol for its inhabitants. Athena rejoiced in victory, protecting and guiding the Athenians and endowing them with great abilities to face difficulties. Over the years, Athens grew into a prosperous metropolis famous for its wisdom, philosophers, and battlefield exploits. The residents never forgot the decisions they made that day and were always grateful to the goddess for her endless generosity and guidance. However, the conflict between Athena and Poseidon did not disappear. For many years, the sea god caused storms and high waves to remind the Athenians of their rejection. But the city rose again and again, stronger and more united than before under the protection of its guardians. The wise Athena, the goddess of strategy, knew very wisely how to lead the country, so in this region, many women tried to become priestesses in the service of the goddess, and there were beautiful women there. Outstanding among all the servants of the gods, Medusa was a devoted devotee of the goddess. She admired a great goddess-like being. As she grew up, her beauty blossomed and she became a wonderful woman who charmed everyone. Despite everything around her, she decides to make her own dreams come true and undergoes her rigorous training and purity tests, and over time her dedicated efforts led her to achieve her goals. He led one of the believers in the temple. Her beauty and her ritual skills quickly attracted many followers who were dazzled by her presence. However, Medusa's success did not go unnoticed by the gods of Olympus. They all admired her slender figure, her delicate and beautiful face, and her amazing abilities. As a believer, Poseidon saw this as the perfect opportunity to take revenge on Athena. And he tarnishes the reputation of the divine guardian. One day, Medusa was walking on the beach. Poseidon emerged from her waves and tried to seduce her. Despite her god's best efforts, the young woman remained true to her vows and refused to give in to her god's desires. Filled with fear and anger, the Lord of the Sea fled and pursued them to the temple, where he forced himself on them and desecrated them, leaving behind a sacred place and a wounded girl. When Athena found out what had happened, she blamed Medusa for what had happened, turning her into a horrible monster with snakes in her hair and erasing the beauty of the young woman. A hopelessly grieving woman fled the city and was doomed to be turned into stone. Anyone who dared to look into her eyes fell into loneliness and despair. Medusa, heartbroken and her life shattered, finds refuge in a dark and secluded cave. She has given up on living in the shadows, far away from those she might hurt with her terrifying gaze. The snake in her head hisses and ripens, a constant reminder of her curse and her fate as a monster. It quickly spread among the residents of this area. The brave warriors who heard the story were fascinated by the idea of confronting the terrible Gorgon and ridding the world of her evil presence. One by one they took swords and shields and entered the darkness of the cave, but none of them returned alive. Their petrified bodies became sad monuments. Having witnessed Medusa's destructive power, a young hero named Perseus one day arrives at the temple of Athena and asks for her blessing before embarking on a dangerous mission. He should confront Medusa and bring her head as proof of her courage. The goddess gives the hero a polished shield resembling a mirror that allows him to see his reflection without turning to stone, and a sword that can decapitate a Gorgon, offering these magical weapons and the guidance of a divine guardian. Provided below. Perseus decided to face his fate and entered a cave, following the trail of thousands of petrified statues, until he reached Medusa's lair. He raised his shield, his heart pounding, and looked at the reflection of the Gorgon on its surface. A snake was flapping furiously in her head. However, the monster-like woman was fast asleep, unaware of the protagonist's presence. Seizing the moment, Perseus raised his sword and with one blow cut off the Gorgon's head from the neck. Gushed to a torrent of blood, and in that instant Medusa's curse was broken. Her spirit, freed from the prison of her monstrous body, ascended to the heavens. The hero returned victorious from his journey, and handed the monster's head to the goddess, who carried on her shield the head of Medusa, a reminder of the unfortunate woman who had been a victim of divine wrath and the machinations of Poseidon. On the other hand, Hephaestus the blacksmith god had developed a deep admiration for Athena. Both shared a love of craftsmanship and creativity, and the god thought they were kindred spirits, for the warrior goddess always visited his forge in search of artifacts. However, the woman is a virgin. Goddess had no interest in becoming romantically involved with anyone, much less with the ugliest god on Olympus. One day Hephaestus, blinded by his love and desires, decided to try to seduce the goddess. He followed her to her abode on Olympus, hoping that he could win her heart. The divinity without hesitation rebuffed his advances, and in the ensuing struggle, the god spilled his seed on the goddess' leg. Enraged and disgusted, the divinity quickly wiped himself clean, throwing the seed to the earth. Mother Earth Gaia became impregnated by Hephaestus' semen and eventually gave birth to a child named Erichthonius. Erichthonius was born with an unusual appearance. Although his torso and head were human, his legs were snakes instead of human limbs. Despite the divine protectors, upon learning of the little boy's existence, felt deep sympathy for the child and decided to adopt him as her portage with the care and guidance of the goddess. The boy was taken to Athens, where the goddess hid him in a sacred basket inside her temple. On the Acropolis, Athena chose 3 daughters of the Athenian king Sacroglories, Vandros, and hers to care for the boy. He gave them strict instructions not to open the basket under any circumstances. However, human curiosity is hard to control, and a glorious hearse could not resist taking a peek inside the basket. Upon seeing the monstrous form of Erythronium, they were so horrified that they went mad and threw themselves from the top of the Acropolis. Despite the tragedy, Athena continued to protect and guide Erythronium, ensuring that he grew up to become a wise and just leader for Athens. In time, the snake-bodied boy became a revered and adored king by his people thanks to the help and guidance of the protective goddess. The Trojan War, an epic conflict that lasted 10 long years, devastated both Greeks and Trojans alike. Amid this chaos and bloodshed, Athena, the goddess of wisdom, war, and craftsmanship, watched from on high and provided support for the Greek heroes. Her heart was especially set on Achilles and Odysseus, 2 of the bravest and most cunning warriors on the Greek side. When the battle seemed to be going in favor of the Trojans, the goddess decided to intervene. She was a descendant of Olympus and appeared before Achilles, the swift warrior wearing a golden helmet, and Odysseus, the cunning hero of Ithaca, the goddess of wisdom. And the shining aegis radiated her power and wisdom. Achilles, eager for redemption and honor for his late friend Patroclus, led the Greek warriors into battle with unparalleled combat skill and the guidance of the goddess of war. He defeated the Trojan horse, Odysseus. On the other hand, he demonstrated his cunning and leadership skills through his surveillance, construction of a rocking horse. And the bravest Greek warriors were surely hidden inside. Even after the fall of Troy, the divine guardians continued to guide Achilles and Odysseus on their own paths. For Achilles, his final fate awaits him on the battlefield, where he will die a glorious death and be remembered as Greece's greatest warrior. However, Odysseus faced a long and difficult journey to Ithaca, where his wife Penelope and his son Telemachus were waiting. Throughout this difficult journey, Athena remained by his side, protecting and guiding him through every step of the Trojan War, and in the years that followed, Athena continued to show her respect to those who respected her. He showed dedication and loyalty. War always cared for the suffering of mortals, protecting and guiding heroes in their darkest moments and ensuring their legacies endured through the ages.